We'll get you a new one. You know,
okay?
out of the chamber.
What a great crowd. So, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of the Kensington Area Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to welcome you and thank you for joining us for this Malpeque Federal Candidates Debate. My name is Ian McCarville. I'm the president of the Kensington Area Chamber of Commerce this year. I'm a partner with the law firm Key Murray Law in Summerside. As a chamber, our mission is to support a vibrant, resilient, and informed business community. Events like tonight play a critical role in our mandate by giving our members, but also the local community at large, an opportunity to hear directly from those seeking to represent us in Ottawa. I'd like to thank each of the candidates for being here this evening, for your willingness to put your names forward to serve our community. A sincere thank you to our Chamber's incredible Executive Director, Julie Corbett, for all your hard work, Julie, in organizing tonight's event. And we also extend our appreciation to Kish for hosting us, as well as the Community Sector Network of PEI, Meals on Wheels, and the PEI Coalition of Women's Leadership, who partnered with us tonight to make this event possible. So please thank all those folks. Okay, so now I'll introduce the candidates for tonight's debate. They're being introduced alphabetically by name of the party that they're here to represent. So first, representing the Conservative Party of Canada is Jamie Fox. Representing the Green Party, Anna Keenan. Representing the Liberal Party, Heath MacDonald. On my left, representing the New Democratic Party, Cassie MacKay. And representing the People's Party of Canada, Hilda Baughn. Looking forward to a great debate tonight here, folks. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for tonight, Mr. Chris Pride. Chris.
Welcome, everybody. I'm looking forward to a positive debate tonight. The Kensington Area Chamber of Commerce, the Community Sector Network of Prince Edward Island, Meals on Wheels, and the PEI Coalition for Women's Leadership are pleased to partner together to host the debate this evening. They're working extremely hard to keep every aspect of this event transparent and neutral. This debate is intended to be friendly and under strict guidelines. Land acknowledgement. Abaquit is located in the Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. They've occupied this island for over 12,000 years. We honor the treaties of peace and friendship which recognized Mi'kmaq rights and established an ongoing relationship between nations. All decisions have been decided by a random draw. That includes everything from who speaks first, what questions will be asked, who goes to the washroom first, all those things. The table seating on stage tonight have been assigned by alphabetical order, a political party name. This has been done to ensure transparency and neutrality on the Chamber's part, and for the people associated with this debate as well. The debate will be a question and rebuttal format. There will be no questions from the floor. Each candidate will be given 4 minutes of uninterrupted time to present their platform. There will be no rebuttal at this time. The format of the question and rebuttal session will essentially go like this. The moderator, myself, will ask question number 1. Candidate number 1 will have a maximum of 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted. That'll be followed by a group rebuttal time of a maximum of 4 minutes. From there, I'll ask question number 2. Candidate number 2 will have a maximum of 2 minutes to speak uninterrupted, and that will be followed by 4 minutes of a group rebuttal time. And that will continue on rotating throughout the rest of the questions. All right, at this time, I would ask the two people responsible for timing tonight's debate to please stand up so everyone can see where the timing occurs.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosalie and John. A timer will run the timed clock located in front of the stage. There will also be a second timer who will be responsible for holding up flashcards to help candidates with timing. So if you see a green sign, it means you have 1 minute left. If you see the yellow card, it means 30 seconds left. And when you see red, your time is up. The moderator will have the option to extend rebuttal time if the conversation is positive and informative and needs a short extension in time. The moderator has the option to move on to the next question earlier than the time frame of the 4 minutes rebuttal time if discussion has ceased. The residents of the Malpeque riding were asked to submit questions in writing to the Kensington and Area Chamber of Commerce in advance of this evening. The master list of questions was emailed out to each candidate at approximately 10 a.m. today. There were no indications of which questions will actually be asked this evening. I will be drawing a number from the bowl and will ask the corresponding question to that number. I will ask between 8 and 12 questions, whatever time allows. After the question and rebuttal session is completed, each candidate will be given 4 minutes of uninterrupted time to present their closing comments. There will be no rebuttal at that time. All right, so we will begin with the opening remarks. I invite Heath MacDonald of the Liberal Party to present his platform.
Thank you, and it's wonderful to be here tonight. Thank you for this opportunity. First, I want to start by thanking the host, the Kensington Area Chamber of Commerce, and moderators, obviously. We are living in ever-changing times, and each and every person in Malpeque is affected by this. We're seeing every day how the wild politics of our neighbors to the south are influencing things abroad and here at home. I know there is a lot of anxiety and concern out there about Donald Trump and his unjustified tariffs, and his extreme politics, and the important issue of not allowing that to be imported into Canada. As your member of Parliament, I've spent every single day working for residents of Malpeque, regardless of how they vote. At the end of the day, the only way we can stand up to a bully like Donald Trump is to stand shoulder to shoulder. We need to remain united, and we need to ensure that the best possible person is elected to take on Donald Trump head on. And that person is Mark Carney. He is the right man at the right moment with the right combination of real-world experience. He is not a lifelong politician. He is an internationally acclaimed expert who was hired by not one, but two Conservative governments. I am proud of what we have achieved here in Malpeque. We have made historic investments in our primary industries. We have created good-paying jobs. And we have lifted thousands of children out of poverty. I want to continue on that work, and I want to ensure that the people of this riding always have a voice in Ottawa. I will always stand up for Malpeque, and I will always remain principled, and I always will have your back. Thank you.
Thank you, Heath. I now invite Jamie Fox of the Conservative Party to present his platform.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. This election is about one thing. It's about Canada. It's about uniting our neighbors and our provinces across the country. It's about bringing industry back into the country, to Malpeque. It's about making things affordable. It's about bringing common sense back to the people of this country. I've traveled the country, and I've traveled around the Maritimes. I've traveled worldwide over the last 5 years when I was Minister of Fisheries. I've visited every harbour in PEI. I was in every small business, almost. I went door to door, and people are struggling. This election is about righting a wrong over the last 8 years and bringing affordability back to all islanders and Canadians. It's about promoting our own industry. It's about making Canada strong. It's about stopping influence from outside the country like China, which is the real threat. It's about enhancing our partnerships with neighbors and our friends and bringing back old relationships that have been forgotten for the last number of years. I've heard that time and time. It's about making things in your life more affordable. It's about lowering taxes. It's about giving you a true voice in Ottawa. It's about being able to come to you and having you guys come to us, or me going to you and hearing your concerns on a daily basis. I've done this for the last 8 years. When I was a minister, what I'm hearing back then for them 4 years was the number one issue, and it still is the issue today at the doorsteps. It's affordability. It's about being able to fill and build a home. It's about having a place we can call home. It's about raising our kids in a safe environment. That's what this election's about. The United States is our friend, and we've had an ally there for years and years. We've always stuck hand in hand. We fought on many fronts in different wars. So I'm very confident that Pierre Poilievre will have the skills, and does have the skills, with the cabinet around him and the people that support him, to bring forth a strong North American market that serves everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. I now call upon Hilda Baughn with the People's Party of Canada to present her platform.
Good evening, everyone. Use your microphone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. I apparently needed instructions. Good evening, everyone. I'm Hilda Baughn, and I'm the People's Party of Canada candidate for the riding of Malpeque. I would like to thank the Kensington and Area Chamber of Commerce for the invitation to participate. And thank you to the audience for attending this important discussion this evening. I'm the daughter of Dutch immigrants, born in St. Thomas, Ontario. My parents embraced Canada, prioritizing the English language to connect with their new community. They were Canada first, and I carry that commitment forward. In 2022, I moved to Wilmot Valley, PEI, with my daughter and son-in-law. I love the peace here. It reminds me of my teenage years when I that I spent working on farms. Fun fact, my brother lived in Kensington in the 1980s and loved the kitchen parties. I volunteered most of my life and continue to do so. I worked as a medical transcriptionist in Saudi Arabia for over 4 years, where I learned to embrace diverse cultures. As a founding member of the PBC, since its beginning in 2018, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone to run as your candidate. I've also served as an active board member of the PEI Regional Association for 2 years now, and I am currently in the role of Vice President. I'm running in this election representing the PPC because I believe in Maxime Bernier's leadership and our policies, rooted in individual freedom, respect, fairness, and personal responsibility. We reject special interest groups. There are no hyphenated Canadians. Everyone, regardless of background, deserves equal treatment under the law with dignity and respect. Unlike other parties, we stand for smaller, efficient government. We'll withdraw from globalist organizations like the Paris Accord, World Economic Forum, and World Health Organization, saving billions and restoring Canada's sovereignty. We, as the PBC, propose a moratorium on immigration policies, including proper vetting. Economically, we'll balance the budget in a year, and by cutting corporate welfare and staying away from foreign conflicts. Then we will reduce taxes by year 2, and that will benefit all Canadians. Socially, we're the only party willing and wanting to open the abortion debate. With no current laws restricting abortions, including up to birth, we are among the only Western countries with these barbaric practices. We need legislation and honest discussion. Our policies are consistent and transparent. They are available year-round on the peoplespartyofcanada.ca website, and they're not just thrown together weeks before an election, like the other parties. We stand by our principles, always, and I look forward to tonight's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. I now invite Cassie MacKay of the New Democratic Party to present her platform.
I'm Cassie MacKay, and I chose to run for the New Democrats here in Malpeque because I believe in everything Jagmeet's put forward, mainly the fact that as a country we have seen prices skyrocket for everything for a long time, but especially since the pandemic. Groceries have become more expensive, housing's become more expensive, gas has become more expensive. The prices keep rising for everything, and without a new Democratic government, we will continue to see those prices skyrocket. For me, I believe that affordability is the main focus in this election because we can't keep going on with the rising cost of living. We're seeing increases of people being homeless. We're seeing people going hungry. We need to make a plan to make Canada more affordable.
Thank you, Cassie. And I now invite Anna Keenan of the Green Party to present her platform.
Thank you very much. And Will Allen, and merci tout le monde d'être ici pour participer et d'exercer votre esprit démocratique. I want to start by echoing the land acknowledgement that was given by the Chamber at the start. We have come a long way as a nation and as an island in the process of truth and reconciliation over the last 10 years, and we have a lot further to go. And I think it's important that we continue to acknowledge that until we have completed that process of truth and finally reached true reconciliation. Isn't this a really weird election? Let's just put it out there. This is a really strange, bizarre election. What's going on south of the border is unprecedented. I don't hesitate to call it the rise of autocracy and fascism in what has previously been one of the beacons of democracy around the world. And that's happening just south of the border. It's a giant, that country is 10 times the size of Canada, and what happens there, our neighbour to the south, really deeply impacts us. And it worries me that that style of politics has threatened to spread north of the border. But I'm also really grateful that in the last 2 months, since that administration has been in place south of the border, it seems to have united Canadians and woken us up to say that is not the direction that we want to go in. As I knock on doors, I'm hearing people say they're scared of the direction that a Poilievre-led Conservative government would take the country, echoing a lot of that rhetoric that we see from down south. But people are also feeling the results of the last 10 years of a Liberal government. They're feeling the promises on housing, affordability, healthcare, and they're saying, why should we give them another chance? And I'm here to say, there are other options. I'm running for the 3rd time in this riding. We've achieved strong results. We've turned this riding into a 3-way contest. I expect that threat of vote splitting is one of the reasons that we've seen Pierre Poilievre visit this riding multiple times and try to target it. But we are a party as Greens that stands up for climate action. We stand up unapologetically for electoral reform. We have other ideas to offer that is outside of this red-blue 2-party duopoly, where they seem more interested in attacking each other and focusing only on their leader rather than true community representation. One of the reasons that I chose to run with the Greens is because the Greens don't whip votes. Every Green Party MP is totally free to represent their community. We actually see votes in the provincial legislature where different Greens will vote differently. They don't always vote as a bloc. The Samara Centre for Democracy recently put out a study saying that 96% of the time in the House of Commons, MPs will vote with their party. And I'm not here to do the bidding of any particular leader. I want to listen to the community and to represent the community's views in Ottawa. Whichever party forms government, and I know it's extremely unlikely to be my own this election, whichever party forms government, I'm going to be able to say, I support you and I think that this policy is good and you're doing the right thing. That's going to move the country forward. But I will also have the freedom to say, this idea that you're championing is not good enough. It's not going to work for our communities, and I'll be free to criticize. And I don't think that we get that when we elect backbenchers from the two major parties. I can't make promises of what my party will do in government because we're unlikely to have a Green government, but I can make 4 commitments. I will listen, I will work across party lines to get results, I'm going to be transparent and accountable, and I'm going to stand up when it counts and when our community needs a voice. Thank you, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the debate.
Thank you very much, Anna. All right, we will now move on to the question and rebuttal period of the evening. I want to remind everyone that each candidate answering the questions will have 2 minutes without interruption to answer, and then there will be a 4-minute group rebuttal time. The order of speaking was randomly drawn with the candidates as witnesses. Our first question will be directed to Conservative Party candidate Jamie Fox. And now I got to find the question. Okay, our first question is about candidate accountability to the Malpeque district. Why should voters in the Malpeque district trust you to represent their interests? And what have you already done to demonstrate your commitment to this district? Answering first, again, from the Conservative Party, Jamie Fox.
Well, thank you very much, Chris, for the question. I think over the last 8 years as an MLA, I've proved myself to be very open to the people, being accessible to them and being available to them whenever they need me. I've had an open book policy when it comes to my cell phone number, and I believe it's up. The candidate should actually go to where the people work and they live and actually hear from them instead of them chasing actually a candidate around. And I've done that successfully for the last, let's say, over 8 years. Over the last year and a half, I believe it's very important to be out there at the doorsteps, be in the small businesses, be in the gas stations, and listen consistently to find out what industry is doing. And that is a reason that that's a philosophy I've taken, I say, for years, and that will continue.
Thank you very much, Jamie. We're now going to open the floor for 4 minutes of group rebuttal time. And again, candidates are free to speak at will. We do ask that you don't speak over each other, though. Someone's got to start.
Sure, I'll dive in. I suppose it's less of a rebuttal. I'm not going to rebut your commitment to this place, Jamie. I think we're all committed to this place. I will say people often pick out my accent. I'm originally from Australia. I'm married an Islander, and we came here. We chose to come here to start a family. We were living in Europe. We lived in Montreal before we came here, and then finally we decided, if there's one place that we want to raise a family, it's PEI. We want to give our kid the same beautiful rural upbringing as my husband had the benefit of, and we're part of the community, part of our local schools. We coach sports. I coach a chess club. I'm less into the basketball and soccer myself. I've been serving on local arts organization boards. If you're familiar with the River Clyde pageant, a beautiful arts event that happens in New Glasgow every summer. We try to choose local suppliers all the time for our business, our renovations. My husband started a small business. We're very much a part of the community here and committed to it. And through our work, I've been working for local municipalities. We're working to improve this place. Through work on climate action, we're working to protect this place, the beautiful natural environments that we enjoy. And through political work and work on electoral reform, we're trying to improve democracy at this place. And I'm proud of the contributions that I've made over that time.
Look, Prince Edward Island's a pretty small place, and you get to know everybody relatively quickly when you're in politics. It's very political on PEI, and that's a good thing. Democracy is extremely important. Why would you want me as your member of parliament? I'm accessible. I listen to my constituents. I work closely with municipalities in all the ridings, within my riding. And you fight like heck to get funding to do things like this school that we're sitting in, which is a $650,000 face-it on the front of the school, or if it's a rink, or if it's the water and sewer, or if it's somebody has a vision for possibly a new community center in this community. You listen, you understand, and you try to direct and work alongside the mayor and council. You work alongside the people and their interests. What you want to do is develop infrastructure surrounding this community so this community can grow. So the forefathers of this community can look and say, the next generation is doing their part, and the next generation is doing their part, and Kensington will be here for a long time.
For me, I am promised that regardless of the outcome of this election, whether I'm elected or I'm not, I'm always going to be here for Malpeque and PEI. I'll always be accessible. I'm a strong advocate for important issues here on the island, and I will continue to advocate for what people need, regardless of if I'm elected or not, but it would be a lot easier to support you all as a community, as an island, if I'm elected.
We'll extend by another minute so the final candidate can speak.
Thank you. I was going to say, as a Christian, my values align with trustworthiness, and so I believe that I am reliable, dependable, honest, and trustworthy. I don't have a long history here, but I do have commitment to the people of PEI, and I do want to see all of the province prosper and live in peace.
Okay, so just because the group rebuttal time is time, we are going to ask that during that 4 minutes we hold the applause till the end, just so all candidates have a chance to say their piece. Okay, the next question will be directed towards the People's Party of Canada. Hilda Baughn will have the first 2 minutes of uninterrupted speaking time, and your question is, how will your party improve long-term funding and collaboration with the nonprofit sector, particularly regarding fair wages, digital infrastructure, and community service delivery? 2 minutes. How will your party improve long-term funding and collaboration with the nonprofit sector, particularly regarding fair wages, digital infrastructure, and community service delivery?
apologize. I have jotted notes here, and I cannot find the question. I can't find the order. I think I'll pass for that.
Okay. The candidate chooses to pass. We'll put 4 minutes on the board for group rebuttal time, and if anyone has something to add, they can jump right in.
I'll go. Support for nonprofit sector. I think when you look across Prince Edward Island, and specifically Malpeque, you look at Lions Clubs, you look at Kinsman's, you look at all kinds of organizations that are not-for-profit. It really is what defines Islanders. Most organizations are non-for-profit organizations. Most relevant issues that we deal with on a daily basis are run by non-for-profits. You can go to your local community center, you can go to your local rink. There's always something going on and people are there volunteering. Supporting non-for-profits going forward, especially ones with, digital infrastructure. It will be extremely important for government to step in and ensure that that digital infrastructure is secure for those not-for-profits. Supporting them with resources, not just funding, but resources that enable them to be successful in commerce. And I think that's going to play a significant role in seeing the success of the digital economy going forward.
I'll jump in on this one as well. I used to work in the nonprofit sector myself for 15 years, and I'm not sure people fully appreciate how large a portion of Canada's economy the nonprofit sector is. People tend to think of the economy as businesses, the for-profit sector, obviously tremendously important, but the nonprofit sector in Canada actually employs more people than the oil and gas sector and contributes more to our economy than oil and gas, which we obviously know is about 5% of Canada's GDP. It's quite significant. So they're providing core social, environmental, and cultural services to every community across the country. Our watershed groups are a beautiful example of that. Not only advocacy groups, but also services like Family Violence Prevention Services does an amazing work here on PEI. Women's institutes, sports clubs, all of these sorts of things. And generally, when they always do fundraising from the community, and so people are making donations to help make those budgets. I'm actually looking at someone in the audience here who's part of the Festival of Small Holes. Great cultural programming. So there's donations that come in, there's programs that people pay for, like when you pay for a ticket to an arts organization, but there's also grants, government grants that come through that help to fund the really critical work they do in community. And very often those grants are only tied to projects, and it's really hard for those organizations to apply that grant money to the organization's core expenses, like their executive director who works year-round, like database systems and digital infrastructure, like rent for an office. And so making sure that the grant programs that are provided through the federal government are able to address not only programs, but also help to cover a portion of that core infrastructure, can help to make these organizations sustainable so that people working in the nonprofit sector can have long careers rather than burning out after a few years, for example. A few points.
Chris? So I want to touch on a couple of things here. First of all, not too long ago, the Liberal Party in Ottawa, there was a bill brought forward that would allow charitable status to be extended to nonprofit groups, the same as political parties. And the Liberal Party went and voted that down. Next thing was that there was also, there's a bill on the floor, or a motion on the floor, to limit the actual nonprofit status of churches and them type of religious organizations that would remove them nonprofit statuses. One thing that's always sort of bothered me was firemen. Our firemen do so much work out there in the community, but yet we see them collecting money in boots, and that's something that's really affected me over the number of years. I was very fortunate when I was a minister to meet a lot of nonprofit groups and actually expand funding that a lot of nonprofit groups are actually losing out because there's no actual federal stream of money going into them. And the COA is a prime example of that. They fund a lot of things, but they're actually limited to what they can do when it comes to nonprofit groups. So I think we need to support the nonprofit groups a lot more than what we've done in the past. And one program was the JEP program. It was Joint Emergency Preparedness Program. They actually put money into fire departments, which was actually cut. And now a lot of fire departments are actually, it's either fundraise or get the money from the provincial government. These need to be looked at.
Nonprofits are very important to our community, and often we don't realize the challenges that they face trying to keep their operations running smoothly. While I'm not elected yet and I don't have access to know what government funding is available, if elected, I would do my part to advocate that nonprofits do get the funding that they need to operate without having to worry about day-to-day operations.
Just a quick on the fire departments. The Liberal government just passed legislation increasing the fire tax credit for fire departments across the country, and it's been doubled. So it's been a great move and well received by the fire departments.
Do you want to jump in? We can extend the time.
I'll just be very quick.
Sure.
Okay. I think that nonprofits are actually are key to, and they fill in a lot of gaps in our communities. I think that they should all receive, continue with charitable status, and that will give them the ability to fundraise on their own and not rely on government handouts. Government handouts are great for crisis, and but we think nonprofits should get it from the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, our next question will be directed at Liberal candidate Heath MacDonald. The question is regarding the Confederation Bridge tolls. Popular topic. Will your party remove or reduce Confederation Bridge tolls, and if so, what is your timeline for this change?
Well, I think we've talked about this quite a bit, and I'll take you back a little bit in history. 2022, August 23rd, I had a discussion with two officials from Straight Crossing. And at that time, we talked about what we could do to reduce the fees on the bridge. And one of the issues that we talked about was increasing the amortization period of the bridge and then lowering the fees by 50%. So during the last 3 years and going through COVID, Fiona and so on, and a couple of new ministers, up until recently, we started that conversation again. 3 things I talked about when I went to see Mark Carney before I decided to run for him. 1 was CFIA, 2 was DFO, and 3 was the bridge. And we sat there and I explained to him the process that I went through to try to get ministers to act on this. And he looked at me straight in the eye and he said, pardon my language, why don't we buy the goddamn thing? We get 7 years left. And that was his initiation. And he has reinforced that with the Premier of Prince Edward Island, that we are going to do this. So we will.
All right, we now invite all candidates to take part in the 4 minutes of rebuttal.
Hey, Chris. So let's give credit where credit's due. Back in 2017, Senator Percy Down approached me and I was leader of the opposition. And he talked about bridge tolls being reduced back then. That was taken to the Liberal government and it was actually declined. They wouldn't touch it. They wouldn't even talk about it. Presently, right now, over $92 million is paid as a subsidy to the bridge on a monthly basis from Transport Canada. There's also roughly $35 million that's gained by the actual tolls of people traveling back and forth. Pierre Poilievre has made a commitment that immediately upon forming government, the bridge tolls will be eluded, they'll be gone. And what will happen is all the counters are in place now. The actual traffic as per vehicle will be added on to the transfer payment that comes per month, and then it'll be passed back to the bridge so the contract is going to be opened. The Liberals have had over 8 years to deal with this issue, and they've just brought it up in the last month and a half to 2 months, and there's been no commitment. Now, if you go back farther than that, under Premier Dennis King, he had meetings with Minister Guilbeault, I believe it was at the time, in transportation, on putting a committee forward to look at bridge tolls and to reduce them. The committee never was struck by the Liberal Party of Canada, and the conversations never went any farther than that. Pierre Poilievre called me back, I want to say it was 3 weeks ago, and made a commitment on that Saturday that if a Conservative government is put in power, the bridge tolls be eluded. And that means a lot to small trucking companies. On one truck going back and forth, getting gravel to bring it back, that's $1,000 a week. Roger Matheson. Kirk Lee, his transport trucks go back and forth on a daily basis. $1,500 a week he spends, which has to be passed on to our suppliers. EMS, Island EMS spends over $51,000 or $57,000 just doing transfers. Our Canadian military is forced to pay. It's the only structure in Canada that our Canadian military has to pay to get Army vehicles back and forth across the bridge. The bridge, if the tolls are gone, history, it will help every islander on daily issues that come back and forth across this island. The Liberals had 8 years to do it. They haven't talked one thing about it in the public until about a month and a half ago. And we still
I'm going to jump in here because there's a minute and a half left in rebuttal, if that's okay.
Okay, we still haven't got a commitment for what they're going to do.
Right. Thank you. I think Jamie's got some fair criticism to offer to the Liberal government. I appreciate, Heath, that you've had conversations directly with your new PM. I think that we do need to keep the pressure on. If I'm elected, I will be able to keep the pressure on regardless of which party forms government. I'm not going to be sitting there defending the delay of my own party. Jamie's just done a really good history of like the last 10 years. I want to go further back. I want to go back to 1993 and who signed that contract in the first place. It was Brian Mulroney. It was a Conservative government. Okay? And when we sign contracts for essential public infrastructure, we need to be very, very careful about it that we're not locking ourselves into higher expenses through privatization of public infrastructure. We have paid so much for that bridge because of that decision. So we've paid more as users, and now buying it out because we recognize it's not a good decision for islanders, it's going to cost the taxpayer more. We paid more as users, now we're going to pay more as taxpayers. We need to make principled decisions when we sign 40-year contracts so we're not screwing ourselves down the road.
So I know the incumbent would like to respond, and we've got candidates who've yet to respond, so let's just add another 4 minutes for now.
For me, I personally understand the struggle of paying for the bridge tolls, and I also want to acknowledge that if we buy the bridge, that will only increase the debt that Canada is in. So that's not a good solution, and taking all the tolls away immediately, that doesn't leave much support for those who work on the bridge to cover the cost of maintaining the bridge. So as a government, and what I would do if elected would be to work with the Confederation Bridge to see how we can lower the tolls, if not eliminate them, without putting the infrastructure or the workers in a situation that's not great for anyone. Because if we don't have workers and we don't have quality infrastructure, we're not going to have a bridge. And I would also extend that to the ferries as well.
While the PBC doesn't have an official position on the bridge, I feel that it's very unfair For starts, the Champlain Bridge in Montreal was built after, I believe it's after, this bridge here. And the government paid for it, and there are no tolls on it. I believe at the very least that islanders should have the bridge fees waived. And I don't know how to work out, you know, the cost, the maintenance and everything else, but islanders have paid too much for too long.
I somewhat agree with Anna in her relative discussion on this contract, and it goes back long before our time, many of us in this room. And we have to be very careful. It's a legal contract, and I think going forward, we want to ensure that the next generations, there's some young girls sitting right up here in the front. That bridge is going to be 30-some years old. We want to ensure that that infrastructure is looked after. I would really like to see legislation, which I would contemplate putting forward in the House of Parliament, to ensure that bridge is looked after the way it is looked after today. And I think that would be extremely important going forward. So we don't get tied into another 40-year contract or a lack thereof because some other government comes to power and decides that they're going to cut infrastructure spending or transportation spending by 20 or 30% over the course of the year, and that may have effect on that bridge or those employees that presently work there. But let's say this, the federal government has been investing in that bridge on an annual basis, $40 to $50 million, plus additional $77 million in 2023. Every time it goes below a certain car count, the federal government has to pay that bridge. So you know what happened during COVID. So it's extremely important that whatever we do it right, take our time, and make it right for the next generation coming forward.
All right, we'll move on to the next question, question number 4. This one will be directed at NDP candidate Cassie MacKay. Your question is about reproductive rights and gender equality. Will your party support increased investments in women's health care and reinstate a standalone Minister of Women and Gender Equality and Youth? 2 minutes.
Healthcare for everyone is important to the NDP, but especially women's health care. As a woman myself, I've seen in how healthcare for us can be inadequate, and I would do my best to advocate to Ottawa, if elected, that we take those concerns seriously and ensure that the funding is available so that women are getting the reproductive health care that they need. And I think having a minister for the youth and women would be a great idea, because the youth and the women have unique issues and they need to be treated just as equally as all the other issues. I heard recently actually that the portfolio for women was handed over to a man, and I believe that that should be in the hands of a woman, because us women understand what's important to other women.
Okay, thank you very much. I now invite the candidate rebuttal discussions, and we'll put 4 minutes on the board.
I'll jump in on this one. Greens have always supported reproductive freedom, and investments in women's health and medical research is a major part of that. I will say we are a science-based party, we are an evidence-based party, and we support funding for universities and medical research institutes to be free to do the research that they find relevant. And one of the most concerning things that I've read in the Conservative Party platform for this election, and you can look this all up online. It's deeply concerning is the ways that they want to control. And I know maybe this is not your personal priority, Jamie, but it is part of what your party is standing for and championing. Wanting to control what universities will be allowed to research and what funding can be spent on what. We've heard Pierre talking about the woke agenda, the DEI agenda, and women's medical research could easily be targeted as part of an anti-woke, anti-DEI slant of government. So I just want to make a stand for academic freedom and for investment in women's medical research. Too often in the past, medical research has only been done on men because women are complicated. We have monthly hormonal fluctuations that can, confound the results of scientific studies. And so it means that Alzheimer's, for example, which is much more common in women, has tended to be studied only on male subjects. And we're missing key information about how do women's hormones interact with this disease that primarily affects women. And so we're finally reaching a stage where gender inequality has been recognized, and we need to actually continue that and address it until we reach gender parity in not only medical research, but in all fields.
Thank you. Look, we fully support a woman's right to choose. It's that simple. We've talked about it in the House of Parliament, we talked about it in public, and we will continue to do so. We've also provided, in the most recent pharmacare announcement, free universal contraceptives, a measure that the Conservatives voted against. I think it's extremely important, coming from a guy that has 2 little granddaughters, that we do everything in our power to give them every opportunity to live the life the way they want to live it, and to the fullest. We will also do more to protect victims of sexual harassment, sexual violence, and intimate partner violence with harsher penalties and new criminal offenses. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. I'll be very clear, it's a woman's right, and we should do everything we can, and I know that's the party stance too, to research and help women with health issues and everything they need going forward. If you want to talk about women's rights, I brought forth a bill 102, back several years ago, that required all provincial court judges to have sexual assault awareness training and understand what a victim actually goes through. That bill was passed in this legislature in PEI, and it went on to be carried on across the whole country, passed in the Senate, and passed in the actual Parliament of Canada. So I believe very strongly in women's rights, in their health care, what they stand for, and what they need. Them services should be provided to the fullest.
Just going to jump in just for a second because...
Let's extend another 2 minutes.
We're watching very closely what's taking place south of the border. And we just seen, and you touched on it, we just seen Donald Trump cutting funding for research to universities. And this is one of the issues that he's dealing with. And then we see Pierre Poilievre talking about this issue in a similar way, as we have seen him talk about other issues in a similar way coming from south of the border. So let's be very aware. This is an extremely important issue. And I think we should all take a stand on it for future generations of young women in Canada.
Now, the PBC has a policy about regarding abortions. We do not agree with the current law that, there are no legal restrictions to abortions. You can have an abortion right up until birth. And that's quite controversial. A lot of other civilized countries, in fact, I don't think there's any other country that has the same abortion laws as we do. As we don't have. Every civilized country has at least restrictions for, going from the first term up to, and outlawing late-term abortions under any circumstances, unless, of course, it's medically necessary. But as regarding gender equality, we believe that there are two genders and that everyone is equal. That covers everybody, no matter if they're male or female. Everyone is equal and should be treated accordingly.
Thank you very much. All right, question number 5 will be directed towards the Green Party and Keenan. Your question is based on cost of living and economic support. How does your party plan to address the rising cost of living, and what support will be provided to islanders on fixed or low incomes?
Thank you very much for the question. I love this question. The Greens have a comprehensive approach to taxation reform. And I said this on the radio the other day when we were all on the CBC panel, but both the Liberal and Conservative parties are offering what I would call tinkering at the edges. Pierre has come out and said, I'm going to give a 15% tax cut to people in low incomes. It's twisting the words. It's 15% of 15%. It's like a 2.5% tax cut. That would amount to, I think it's about $900 a year for an individual. The Greens are proposing to raise the basic personal amount from $15,000 to $40,000. That's your first amount of income before you are charged any income tax. Being $40,000 or less means you are low income. You shouldn't be paying income tax if you earn less than $40,000 a year. That seems like a fairly easy principle, but we haven't got that right now. Right now, income tax begins kicking in at $15,000. If we implement this change, it would save the average worker who earns between $40,000 and $100,000 $3,675 per year, and twice that for a household made of a couple. We would also pay for it, not by cutting government services. This is, obviously tens of billions of dollars in tax revenue for the government. We would pay for it not by cutting government services, which are essential. We would pay for it by restoring the corporate tax rate to where it was before Stephen Harper's corporate tax cuts. We would put it back to 21% for large corporations, not for small and medium businesses. And for people on fixed incomes, OAS and GIS, or disability payments, you go door to door, you meet people, they're getting by on $1,700 a month. We would lift that to meet the poverty threshold so nobody is living in legislated poverty in this country. If you're reliant on government for your income, it should at least meet the poverty threshold.
Thank you very much. All right, we're now going to open the floor for 4 minutes of rebuttal time. Floor is open to any candidate that would like to speak.
The NDP always talks about affordability because that's the key issue in today's society. As I mentioned in my opener, we have a lot of plans geared towards making life more affordable, including permanently taking the tax off of essential items at the stores, working on building more affordable housing units, and also continuing to expand the National Pharmacare program. And we believe with all those in place, people will be able to meet the cost of living better.
Just cost of living. So during my tenure of 4 years in Ottawa, obviously a lot of things happened over that course of time in relevance to the cost of living. But I can say this, that dental care, for example, we brought in child care, which saves a lot of money for young families. School food program, we enhanced that. Pharmacare, we're dealing with that. Diabetes, contraceptives. We're delivering a middle-class tax cut, 2-income households, which could save somewhere in the vicinity of $825. We're reducing the minimum amount that must be withdrawn from registered retirement income fund by 25%. And we're increasing the guaranteed income supplement by 5% for 1 year. And I said to our policy team, why are we only doing this for 1 year? And they said, because Mr. Carney wants to get in and see the books and understand them before he makes any further promises. And that's why it's important that we have an economist to lead us into the future, someone who gets it, someone who is going to challenge Donald Trump and continue to build Canada as a strong, self-reliant country.
Thanks, Chris. We need to reduce taxes, simple as that. You talk about the carbon tax. The Liberals have paused the carbon tax. That's all they've done. They could have called back Parliament and actually got rid of the carbon tax. They didn't do that. We have the clean fuel regulations that's added on the refinery at 17 cents, a second carbon tax there that they've never talked about or dealt with. If we continue to tax our businesses at high rates, they're going to pass the cost on to every one of us. And we've seen that over the last number of years. We need to give everybody tax breaks so they can spend their money locally and put more money back in the economy. The more money that a person has in their pocket, the more money they'll have to spend in the street. It's very simple. You want to know how the economy works? Go see a guy who runs a convenience store. Ask him if he's selling pop chips and chocolate bars. It's as simple as that. If people have money, they'll buy pops, chocolates, and chocolate bars, or they'll go to a restaurant. And right now, people aren't doing that because of the cost of goods and services that have been put on by too many high taxes. We don't even allow seniors to make extra money, because if they do, then their CPP or OAS is clawed back and they're taxed on it. That needs to stop. And we plan on reducing taxes on a multi-level across everybody's front, and also allow our seniors to keep more money by making extra income up to $10,000.
And what they won't say is what services they're going to cut with all of these tax cuts. That's what they never say. Okay? We need to make sure that we have well-funded public services in this country, and we need to make sure that the tax burden is appropriately shared and not placed on the lowest income residents.
Let's add another 2 minutes.
I'm just going to add to it. It's very interesting to hear the Conservative Party of Canada talk about taxes. When we brought forward the dental care plan, which is up to about 12,000 people in this province, when we brought forward the child care benefit plan, when we brought forward the Canada Child Tax Benefit, which brings in about 25 million into my riding alone, what did they do? They voted against it. When they talk about tax cuts, their tax cut is going to cost the Canadian government, the Canadian taxpayer, $14 billion. $14 billion. So you tell me which one of those programs I just mentioned that are going to have to be cut. Because it's going to have to be something. Anna's right.
So the PDC is intent on balancing the budget, and then afterwards reducing income tax across the board, like reducing income tax, reforming income tax brackets. That will give everybody more money in their pockets, and reducing housing and rental costs through sensible immigration limits. When there's enough housing for the population, the housing market will cool, and housing will also be more reasonable.
I see 20 seconds more on the clock. I'm going to take it while it's here. A major part of the affordability challenge is housing. And the cost of housing, the escalation, I'm going to give the Liberal government credit. They succeeded in reducing poverty until about 2022, and then post-pandemic, the massive escalation in inflation, which was poorly handled, and the lack of investment in housing caused the cost of living crunch we see today. I could say more, but time's up.
Anyone else want to jump in? Okay, we'll move on. Our next question is going to be initially directed towards Jamie Fox of the Conservative Party. Jamie, your question is about immigration pathways and labor needs. What is your stance on immigration, particularly regarding work and study visa pathways that support local labor market needs?
Thanks, Chris. Well, the first thing is you can't have a population strategy without having an infrastructure strategy. And that's what we've seen over the last number of years. You wonder why you don't have doctors. You wonder why you have cramped schools. You wonder why you have infrastructure that's falling apart. Because the Liberal government had an immigration policy but they didn't take into account what the infrastructure results were. We have a patient waiting list. Of course we do. We also have schools that are crammed to the hilt. Reason being is we had a population strategy that did not go hand in hand with any infrastructure strategy across the country. We need to make sure that we're bringing in immigrants to we actually put them to work. There's hundreds of thousands of doctors and nurses across the country from other countries that we don't even accept the credentials for. And we need to actually create a Blue Seal program, where if you're from another country and that program or that skill that you have is accepted or meets the same test that our provincial governments have or other provinces, that we accept them. We actually have people in PEI that are nurses and licensed practitioners driving taxis and working at fish plants. We need to stop that. We need to actually give people the credit they have and recognize their skills here in our own country.
Thank you, Jamie. We'll now open up the floor for 4 minutes of group rebuttal time.
The PBC wants to impose a moratorium on immigration, at least until housing and jobs catch up, and the markets cool down. We want to remove the express entry loophole in PEI that attracted temporary students and temporary foreign workers to come here in extreme numbers for the permanent resident lottery. That needs to be closed. And but regarding the need for seasonal workers, the temporary foreign worker program will still be in place. But this also needs to be implemented in a more responsible manner. Yeah.
I'll jump in and look, immigration obviously is extremely important to Prince Edward Island. We live in a place where we have an aging demographic. And as I look around the room and see fishers and farmers who depend on immigrants for working, it's extremely important to us. I believe that, yes, I want to clarify one thing. I was a former immigration minister here in Prince Edward Island. And the immigrants we brought in were about from 18 to 2,200 people a year. Now there's a lot of migration to Prince Edward Island as well. And don't forget about that, because sometimes people look and see an individual of a different descent and think they're immigrants when they're actually migrated from another province. So that's extremely important. Diversity is our strength on PEI. But the federal government sets the boundaries on how many you can access. The provincial government has to accept them, or can accept them or deny them. So let's not kid ourselves and point the finger solely at the federal government, because it's not necessarily the federal government's problem as well. We've tightened up immigration rules. I agree, we have to slow it down. There has to be an equilibrium there that we ensure our infrastructure and our housing keep up, and our health care. But let me say this, when you walk into a nursing home or the hospital now, you see a lot of immigrants working. It's not just at fast food restaurants, don't kid yourself. We need them, but we do have to ensure that we take them in at a speed and a ratio that our province can handle them.
An NDP government would start by fixing the backlog and to reunite families. Right now, there's many families that are being separated by immigration. And we would also improve the recognition of foreign credentials in order to help nurses and doctors who are qualified in other countries practice here in Canada. We would also end reliance on the temporary foreign workers and eliminate the closed work permit. And lastly, we would build a clear pathway to permanent residency.
I think everybody here has said fairly similar things. So infrastructure and immigration need to go hand in hand. I want to speak about refugees in particular. Refugees make up a small portion of our overall immigration, and we have a moral obligation to remain open to and welcoming to refugees, especially as humanitarian crises accelerate around the world. Healthcare and labor, particularly in the construction trades, are key areas where we need to be welcoming immigrants at this time so we can build the housing that we all need.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. This next question will be directed towards the People's Party of Canada candidate, Hilda Baughn. Hilda, your question is about the Malpeque Wharf and dredging issues. What actions will you take to resolve the ongoing dredging and maintenance problems at the Malpeque Wharf?
For starts, this is a decades-long problem, and it needs permanent solutions. We believe that we need to create a task force to investigate the systematic issues that are plaguing. Oh, sorry. We need to fully analyze the harbor and the issues that have created the situation, why nothing's being done about it. Like I said, we need a permanent solution with public involvement and transparency. Apparently, the residents are upset that they haven't been involved in this process. Of course, it's going to involve the harbor, the fishermen, provincial, and the federal as well. Hopefully they can come up with some solution, because it seems like it's imperative that something happens soon.
Okay, we'll now open up the floor to 4 minutes of group rebuttal.
I'll take that there, Chris. The problem is under DFO you have A funding and B funding. And there's no actual direct funding that's allowed for dredging. So any dredging that needs to be done had to be robbed out of A and B funding, which is priority funding for the maintenance and upkeep of our wharfs. Malpeque is not the only harbor having this issue. It's been an issue that's been ongoing for about 20 to 30 years because of sifting sands off the point, which is choking it off. And the solution is that we need to actually blow a hole out through the actual breakwater, which is actually approved by, I think it's the Canadian Wildlife Center or Service, that there needs to be a breakwater on each side. But also, Rustico has the exact same problem. We just don't have, there has not been a commitment by DFO to actually put money into a dredging practice here for PEI. We have different sands that are very unique to PEI, the way our build-up is sandstone and so on. I see a couple of old oyster fishermen here and mussel fishermen that know how them sands move, but we need to actually have dedicated funding into DFO for dredging, so it doesn't go with A and B funding. And what we've had to do in the last little bit was actually bring in the Kier Shore project, which is going to allow our mussel harvesters to bring stuff on shore, but then it's going to be transported. So we need a long-time commitment by DFO. Now, the Conservative government has actually put a plan together with 3 different ministers in the federal government, Bernard Jordan, Joyce Murray, and the new one, and all 3 were rejected by the federal government. It was a $750 million plan over 5 years for Atlantic Canada, and we just need to double that infrastructure funding, which we haven't had a commitment for our fishers or agriculture industry.
Yep. I'll jump in next on this one. There have been options. This issue has been studied to death. It's been, there's 3 different options. We need to pick one, commit to it, and follow through. And I'm glad that you raised the dredging costs are not covered. If we have big investments in, tens of millions of dollars in a new harbor, that implies ongoing costs for financing the borrowing of that money. And if that is a higher cost to the taxpayer than a commitment to annually dredging and making sure that the access is safe, then we should be comparing those two expenses and saying, okay, why would we have money available for capital upgrades but not available for operational upgrades? If it makes more sense to be spending more on operational funding every year rather than making a big capital investment and paying the interest on that loan every year, then we should be making that sensible financial decision. And if there's some policy that's stopping that happening, then we just need to change that policy. And I'm sick of these issues that come up time and time again. This is my third time on this debate stage. The first time was 6 years ago, and the same question was asked. And the fact that these issues keep coming up without decisions, I think it really says something about the slow pace of change when we elect representatives who, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. We need to work for the community and have the freedom to stand up and speak even when the government is not doing a good enough job, instead of just defending the government.
So, Anna, let me begin by saying the $3.25 million towards Keir Shore was an initiative of the federal government. It wasn't an initiative of the province, Jamie. You were the fisheries minister for how many years? 4 or 6 years. This came about from me because, and I will tell you the real reason why, is I had a drive to Malpeque Bay one day when a boat swamped. And the whole time I was driving there, I was thinking, and my family fish, I was thinking, praying to God that no one got hurt. When I left that wharf, I said to myself, I am going to commit all my energy to get the aquaculture guys a safer landing and Keir Shore, which they've been asking for close to 20 years, I'm told. So it's long before any of our time up here. And I will continue to press the issue relevant to Malpeque Harbour. And by the way, the funding that we got for Keir Shore was not funding necessarily 100% of the DFO's budget. It was the first time ever that they provided some of the input to do a job like that. So if there's a will, there's a way, and I will continue to press for Malpeque Harbour. But in saying that, we've given $61 million over 3 years to maintain and repair small craft harbors for aquaculture. And after Hurricane Fiona, we did another $17.6 million investment. And we're committed to providing the $3.25 million, which is already there. And I was up there the other day, and it's about 50% done. So we'll continue to invest. Last year's budget was over $500 million for small craft harbors. But Jamie's right. He is right. There are harbors across this province. I think I have 10 in my riding. And each and every one of them, the guide buoys are being moved on an annual basis. And that's severe climate change. And we have to learn to deal with it. And it's not just about writing a check. It's a scientific issue that we're going to have to figure it out.
We got 2 more candidates who want to speak, so we'll extend the time another 2 minutes.
These issues impact the livelihood and the safety of the fishermen, and I personally haven't looked into this. I don't know what the resolution would be, but it is something where, if elected, I would talk with the local fishermen and those affected and see what can be done. And then I would bring that to Ottawa, recognizing that it's also a provincial issue, so hopefully something could be worked out between the province and Ottawa to solve the issue so that the livelihood and the safety of the fishermen are not put at risk any longer.
The actual conversation on Keir Shore actually started with Neil McNair. Neil McNair is a biologist in the Department of Fisheries and Communities, and I was a minister for 4 years. Bob Creed came in the office back in 2020, I believe, or 2021. And so we had a solution from Keir Shore, from Malpeque Harbour, as to do with the aquaculture industry. Bob came in, and plus Neil McNair, and they put a solution forward to build Keir Shore. The Conversation was then taken to the federal minister, it was Bernadette Jordan at the time, and she would not put any money into it, neither would Joyce Murray. Jerry Bidgood and Atlantic Aquaculture and PI Aqua Farms came forward and said they would actually fund half of the project, up to $600,000. And that was a commitment made to the provincial government after many attempts to go for the federal government, which would not fund it. The commitment was made by myself and Stephen Myers to put forth the money, and then the project was started, and away we went. Now it is. Then after probably, I want to say, all the research study was done, all the dredging, all the soundings, then ACOA came forward and said they were willing to put some money. Serge Doucette was the actual RDG that I met with a month on the project, and they said, point blank, we have no money to put into Kear's Shore at this time.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Question number 8. This one will be directed to Heath MacDonald of the Liberal Party. Heath, your question is about small business support. Small businesses are the backbones of communities like ours in the Malpeque district. Yet many continue to struggle with the rising costs, labor shortages, and limited access to government programs. What specific federal policies will you advocate for to directly support business owners here in the Malpeque district? And how will you ensure those supports are accessible to rural entrepreneurs?
Thank you. Well, it's interesting. Small businesses are the backbone of any community, especially in rural Prince Edward Island. And I used to say when I had economic development here as a minister, investing in the small business was like buying an RRSP. You might not see the return right away, but you will eventually see the return. But if you go back to COVID-19, what we went through and what these small businesses went through, we're very fortunate that we came out the other side of it with a pretty good success rate on maintaining the small businesses across the province. When we did interest-free loans and working capital up to $100,000, support grants, income support fund for employees, regional relief and recovery funds. So we kept their hearts pumping all through COVID-19 to make sure that they could come out the other end. 98 cents of every dollar spent in Prince Edward Island during COVID-19 came from the federal government. And I still have people come up to you and say, thank God you guys were there for us. And I think the Liberal government will always be there for small businesses because they know extremely how important it is. Tax rate, our government reduced the federal small business tax rate from 11% to 9%. We also reduced credit card transaction fees for small businesses of up to 27%. Credit card fees, sorry. We made a $2.5 million investment in 25 businesses right here in Malpeque that are in the tourism business. We've provided wage subsidies for summer student employment. I think there's 492 jobs across the province for young students, which was a program under the Liberal government to support small businesses. And like I said, small businesses are extremely important, especially in rural Prince Edward Island.
Okay. We'll put 4 minutes on the board for group rebuttal time.
PEI is small business. I had 2 small businesses in Prince Edward Island. I started one in Summerside, then the other one, the SO in Baughn. And the thing about small businesses is they spend their money locally. And I think that is, I agree with Heath, it is an investment in our future. It's an investment like an RSP. The more money we can put in a small business and keep them functioning because they employ local people and they also put money back in the economy. I don't think we do enough for small business in the way of small time loans, small interest loans and stuff like that. I think that's something we need to increase and look at. Can we adopt a federal policy on that, or how can we be more there for our small business when it comes to employment incentives or actually expanding their business and promoting their trade to other parts. I think the internet has made us a lot more closer, so how can we take our small business and actually expand them? There's a little business down in Cape Traverse, and she's now selling her goods locally, made goods from PEI. She's selling them all over the world. So I'm very committed to small business because I see the benefits for everybody, especially every community. The more small business we can have, we have 63 municipalities across Prince Edward Island, and the more small businesses we can have in these small neighborhoods is good for all of PEI.
I'll jump in here. We have to make sure that our support for small businesses is not just about reducing taxes. Very often in the first sort of 5 years of business, income is very low, or even businesses will make a loss in those first few years before they flip into making a profit. And so we have to be careful that it's not only about reducing taxes, but also creating an ecosystem in which small businesses can succeed. For a lot of small businesses that start in PEI, if you want to grow beyond being a solo entrepreneur, having 2 or 3 employees, it does mean that you have to start exporting off island, and support, like really practical support for local business people in how to access other markets, how to improve your marketing off island, can be really tangible and helpful. The Startup Zone in Charlottetown has incubated many, many small businesses and has helped them to get their start. But having it be in Charlottetown, it does sort of limit the services that are out here in rural areas. So how could we think about having a rural business incubator? The Central Business Development Corporation does great work. ACOA has great loans and programs and funding to help businesses succeed, making it easier for businesses to access those programs, working with small business owners, reducing red tape, reducing interprovincial trade barriers. All of that is part of building that healthy ecosystem. And we also need to look at the impacts that monopolies have on the economy-wide system. If you're a small business and you're competing with high volume, large corporate monopolies, it can be really hard to get your break. So how are we making sure that we're preventing monopolies, especially, we see it in the grocery sector, for example. How can we make sure that we're not allowing market concentration to focus just in a small number of very large businesses that are making huge amounts of profit and making it difficult for small businesses to compete?
Technology has been advancing, and also with the financial struggles that consumers have, those two issues combined mean that consumers are spending their money at businesses mostly via credit cards. And I don't know how many people are aware, but the small business owners do get dinged a transaction fee by the merchant for any credit card transactions. And one main goal that I would commit to, if elected, would be to cap that fee from the merchants at 1%.
I think just because we took a little run at Brian Mulroney for signing that contract with Confederation Bridge, he was the individual that started ACOA. And I think everybody up here would agree that ACOA has been the most beneficial business development organization that we could ever have in a small province and Atlantic Canada. But it's made many of our businesses and our small businesses, including exports, very, very successful.
Okay, we'll move on to our final question this evening. This question will be directed to the NDP candidate, Cassie MacKay. Cassie, your question is about public trust and democratic reform. What steps would you take to restore public trust in government? And what is your position on electoral reform following Justin Trudeau's regret over abandoning it?
I feel that most people are a bit frustrated and disappointed with government because every time we come up to an election, candidates promise things that they can't commit to, or they put timelines that are unreasonable. And those of us who elected those candidates in are watching and wondering why they aren't doing what they said they were gonna. We elected them because we liked what they said, and now they're not doing it. As a New Democrat, we've talked very openly about our issues, and we've already started making progress on pharmacare, in dental care, and other issues that we've been talking about for years. So we've already shown that we have the follow through, and if elected, we will continue to work on all the goals that we set out to do. As for electoral reform, the way that we vote now, first past the post, doesn't represent all of Canadians' views. We have different parties because we have different beliefs. And we need to have everyone's beliefs represented in Parliament.
We'll now open the floor to 4 minutes of group rebuttal.
Chris? I think public trust starts at the local politician. I think that's where the actual public trust starts. And I think that it doesn't matter what party you represent or what your views are, you must be honest with your constituents. And I think when politicians are not honest with their constituents or the people that they represent, public trust starts to get eroded. And one thing that I believe very strongly, and it happened when the school board elections is we should be teaching our kids, our children within the school system about our governments more, I think. From the local level to the provincial level to the federal level, to the boards, how to get on a non-profit board or belong to a fire department. And I think the more, if we put energy into actually promoting that type of system, then we can work on the actual public trust at a larger level. We have a great democratic system right now. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it sure is better than a lot of other places in the world.
And it could be a whole lot better if we had proportional representation. And we have voted twice in this province in the last 10 years for proportional representation. And the people of this riding, in both of those votes, a vast majority of citizens in Malpeque chose proportional representation. And here's where I'm going to have a go at my friend Heath here. He's got 2 strikes against him on this file. First, you remember in 2016 when we won the plebiscite vote and then the Wade McLaughlin government said, no, not going to happen. Heath was part of that Liberal government. Strike 2. There was a motion calling for reform, a citizens' assembly on electoral reform. It was an NDP motion in the House in February of 2024, and Heath didn't show up for the vote. Sean Casey showed up for the vote, and he voted against his party and for electoral reform, for proportional representation, because he knew that the people in his riding had showed up and placed their votes twice, a majority in favour of change. And so even though the Liberal leadership was all for sticking with the current system, not moving to first past the post, Sean Casey showed up and he voted in favour of change. Heath didn't show up for that vote. I think that we need to represent our constituents, and when we have a vote twice, a plebiscite and then a referendum that tells you exactly what your constituency thinks on this issue, you have a duty as the representative for that community to show up and to express the voice of your community. And on this issue, that is what I would do. I led the campaign for proportional representation in 2016 because I know it upgrades our democracies. I think it's crazy that we have 4 Liberal representatives on this island when we know that 30% of the island votes Conservative. We know that 25% of the island, if we didn't have first past the post, would be voting Green. We should have a Green, a Liberal, a Conservative representative from this island. That's the diversity we would have if we had proportional representation. And I think it is a damn shame that the Liberal government did not follow through on that promise to make 2015 the last election under first past the post. That's the entire reason that we're here in 2025, scared of a Conservative majority, despite the fact that the Conservatives at no stage in the last 4 years have had a majority of support of Canadians. First past the post has got to go. All of the highest rated democracies in the world use proportional representation. It's just Canada, the US, Australia, and the UK that are desperately holding on to this outdated system. We have better evidence. Let's move forward.
So I guess I won't talk about democratic reform, but I will talk about public trust. And what we're seeing south of the border right now, and the misinformation that is out there. I spent an hour in this school last week with a grade 10 and 12 class, and we talked about misinformation. Everybody's got their cell phones. We talked about algorithms. We talked about how society is being influenced constantly. When you knock on a door, and seniors come to the door, and they're almost, you can see the anxiety in their eyes and what they're talking about. They're so worked up about Donald Trump. Now, whether they're watching Fox News or some other station, the misinformation is unreal. So what do? We rely on our local journalism. We rely on CBC to give us the most precise, exact information. We need to maintain our local journalism. Jesus, as a politician, I don't like them all the time. Some of the time I do. But we need them. My mother and father, 80-some-year-olds, sit down every night to watch supper to get their news. Where do they get it? From Compass. We can't lose that. We can't let Pierre Poilievre defund the CBC. Let's keep Compass alive.
Well, I think that all media should be defunded.
Amen.
I agree.
Because when it's funded, you only hear what they want you to hear. You don't get to hear the other side. And so other voices are squashed. I think there needs to be transparency in government. There shouldn't be any closed doors or backroom deals or whatever. I think it should be totally transparent. I think that even the freedom of information request should be open and transparent as well, so that we all can find out what's going on, what's talked about, what's who's shaking whose hand, like it just. But I also am in favor of what do we call it? I'm in favor of electoral reform. I prefer ranked voting, but I would absolutely not be have an objection to proportional voting. I think that there are many people with lots of different views, and their voices never get heard. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the question and rebuttal portion of the evening. We will now hear closing remarks from each candidate. Each candidate is reminded of the strict 4-minute time limit. The order of speaking was randomly drawn with the candidates as witnesses. So I invite from the Conservative Party, Jamie Fox, to present his closing statements.
Well, thank you, Chris. First, right off the bat, I'd like to thank my fellow candidates representing the stage and, for putting their name forward and trying to make Canada and Prince Edward Island, and of course, Malpeque a better place for it is. I also want to thank all of you for coming out, the people that submitted the questions, and great questions. Makes you think, and makes you appreciate where we're at. We have the ability to do this. So thank you very much, everybody that attended and did submit them questions. But this election is about affordability. It's as simple as that. This election is about making things affordable for Islanders and having a representative in Ottawa that's actually going to take your voice forward and carry it through. I've voted against government before. I'll vote against government again. I believe that your constituents need to get a hold of your representative at any time. And I honestly believe that. It upsets my wife. When you're going to the grocery store and people want to talk to you, or the thing around my place is always is that if the garage door is open or the barn door is open, Jamie's home. And people stop by all the time. I don't mind that. I come from a policing background. I was a veteran, and I just completed 30 years of service with the Coast Guard Rescue. I believe that it's very important to be there for Canadians and be there for Islanders. And my commitment is to continue to be there for Islanders, be a voice for Malpeque, and take your concerns forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Next up, I would like to invite from the NDP party, Cassie MacKay.
In the past, we've had Liberal governments, and with them in power, we've heard a lot of people complaining that the Liberal governments are not supporting in what we want in a government. Then we've had Conservative governments. And again, people are not satisfied with having a Conservative government. And all we've seen over the years is it keeps going back and forth, and no one's satisfied. Maybe it's time to make a change and elect an NDP government. We will care and support all Islanders, everyone in Malpeque, all Canadians, and do what's best for everyone as a whole. We won't just be looking out for the millionaires and the billionaires. We will be looking out for the people that make up the majority of the population, and that is middle and low income classes. We will be looking out for seniors, for youth, for people with disabilities, and improving the quality of life for everyone. So in this election, you do have a choice, and it's not just a choice between Liberals and Conservatives. There's other names on the ballot, and while you think that strategic voting to keep somebody out, whoever that is a good idea, if you just knew how many people talk about voting strategically when they really want to vote for someone else, you'd know that if you vote for who you really want in power, that person might actually have a chance. I've done a lot of talking on the phones with voters here, and I also volunteer for the NDP, and I've heard people across the country all say they would vote NDP, but they want to keep somebody else out. So this is your chance to vote NDP and have your better quality of life, have your more affordable life, and have a government that will fight for you.
Thank you, Cassie. Up next, we invite Anna Keenan of the Green Party to present her closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you for being here. I think that it's a really important exercise in what democracy should be about, because neither Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre are on your ballot. On your ballot, you've got the five of us. And in a real representative democracy, people would be free to vote for the best local representative, and they would feel unafraid to place the vote for the person who they feel best represents them and can best represent their community. But as Cassie was saying, we have a huge wave of strategic voting in this election. We've heard it. There's people who are afraid of one party and therefore voting for the other major party. There are people who are sick of the party that's been in power for 10 years, and so they're voting for the next most likely to try to beat them, even if they find it leaves a distaste in their mouth. I'm here to say there are other options. I'm here to say that I would offer myself as a true representative of the community that will listen, that will be open-minded, that will be thoughtful, that will approach debates in Parliament by looking at the evidence, looking at my own conscience, listening to the community, and then making decisions rather than just voting the way that my party tells me to. We had some really great questions in the list of 16 about housing policy, about healthcare, about climate change, and what's the vision on some of those really big issues, and they just weren't the ones that were randomly drawn out of the hat. So if you are wondering what green policy is on those issues, please do check out my website, get in contact with me. You would have all got flyers in through the mail at your household in the last few days. I'm an open book too. My phone number's out there, my email's out there. Invite anybody to get in contact with me. I endorse the idea of voting for what you want. And if you want change, and if you want independent, thoughtful, intelligent representation, then you should vote for it. Thank you very much for hosting the debate, and thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you, Anna. Up next, I invite Hilda Baughn of the People's Party of Canada to present her closing remarks.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, and thank you for your patience with my very greenness here. I have never participated in any kind of a debate. Speaking is not a strength of mine, but I'm trying to learn how to get better at it. I can write a mean letter though, so that's where my strengths lie. As a People's Party representative, I would bring forward the principles of the People's Party of Canada into every situation. Regarding voting, I would vote with my principles, and I would not be afraid to stand on those principles. My strengths are one-on-one with people, and I welcome anyone to sit and have a conversation with me and hear my heart, and hear the heart of the PPC, and really get to know the principles of the People's Party, and Maxine Bernier as the leader. We are doing politics differently. And in spite of not having a seat, we have been able to influence politics from without. And so our policies are amazing. And so, in fact, they're so good that the Conservatives have even adopted some of our policies in order to keep some of their voters. But we will continue to influence politics and move the Overton window just by sticking to our principles and our policies, which have been the same since the party began in 2018. And all of these policies are based on freedom, respect, fairness, and responsibility. And once again, just everyone is equal, and everyone, and fairness is key. No one is better than another. No group of people are more important than the others. And we need to foster see, lose my words. Anyway, foster just a respect. We need to foster respect towards each other. We need to treat each other like human beings, and we can do that with policies that where everyone feels like they're an equal. I thank you for this privilege. I learned a lot, and thank you for bearing with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda. Final speaker tonight from the Liberal Party, Heath MacDonald.
I know some of them are out there going, finally. Look, we're in unprecedented times in this country. Each and every day we're not sure what to expect. And certainly our primary industries, which we didn't necessarily have questions on today, and I know there's potato growers in the room, and there's fishermen in the room. Maybe that'll be some other day. But I just want to say that we will, as a Liberal government, as Mark Carney said, whatever we need to do to ensure everyone is looked after, no matter what Donald Trump does south of the border, then we're going to do it. Any tariffs, reciprocal tariffs that are collected, All the monies is going back into the industries and sectors and the individuals and the businesses that need it most. But I will say this, in traveling around the doors, when I ran the last time, I sensed that the country was divided. People were utilizing some of the issues and the circumstances to drive us deeper and further apart as communities, even as families in some cases. But if there's one silver lining in what Trump has done, he's brought us back together. And as you tap on doors or walk by doors and you see the Canadian flags upright, it makes you pretty proud to be doing what we're doing as candidates. No matter what the party and no matter what the policy, it's extremely important for all of us to leave here tonight. And there's signs out here for Polyev or whoever. It doesn't matter. We're all Canadians, we're all Islanders. We need to stick together and push forward, and we will get through it. But there's one guy that seemed to come out of nowhere, and his name is Mark Carney. He is a geopolitical individual that has the capabilities of dealing with Trump, and we've already seen it. And it's extremely important when you go to mark your X, consider our future and your children's future for the next 4 years. And who do you want to see in charge of our country dealing with the fool south of the border? Thank you.
Thank you, Heath, and thank you to all of our candidates tonight, and most importantly, thank you to you for showing up. The backbone of a strong democracy is an informed electorate, and it starts with moments like this. Drive home safe. Election day is April 28th, with advance polls opening April 18th. We encourage you to stay informed and be sure to vote. Thank you.
You guys did good. Well, you know what, John? I almost made it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I was that low.
We didn't lose you for long.
No, I'll tell you. I was a little